Good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is well. And if you have any issues with the before I start, if there's any issue with the sound or the video quality, let me know in the chat or in the down below in the comments. So I want to welcome everybody. I'm Casper. I'm your host for tonight. And tonight of today, I want to talk about Bill Saunders and his watch channel, WatchArtSci. So um, Bill is a very kind guy, and I think he's hosting a YouTube channel for I think 1-2 years, but especially about modern high-end watches. But 2 years ago, before I started YouTube, he did a review on my vintage Invicta timepieces. So I sent him some of my no, I didn't send my timepieces, but I sent some pictures and some information to him, and he did a review on it and he put it on YouTube. So today I want to watch this video, or at least some parts of it, and just have a small chat about it. So yeah. So yeah, let's dive in. Yeah. Um, I will put on my headset and let's dive into the video. Let's skip this.
Casper has his watches from. And it's one that is not held in the greatest esteem, and the watches they make are fairly what I'll call humble. They're humblers. Okay, we all have some. I have. This is my $200 Chinese watch, and here's my homemade $100 watch I put together. So I mean, it's something we all have humble watches, and this is a humble collection, but it's very unique. And before
I think the screen skipped. Yeah.
we get started, I wanted to tell you a little about Invicta. Now, there's a certain term that will come to people's heads as soon as collectors' heads, as soon as they hear the words Invicta. Instead of that word, instead of something scatological, here's an idea. Try to come up with something. Here's a humble. All right, you got some humble ones too. All right, so let's take a
So, firstly, I had also some mail contact with Bill, and he's an humble guy, and he will not tell like popular things like Hublot is shit and Invicta is garbage, and he's just honest and humble and very kind. So, and I directly in our contact, yes, I can tell about Bill. He has very expensive watches himself. So he had watches that are from the big three. So the Holy Grail, the Patek Philippe, Vacheron Constantin, Audemars Piguet. So in the past he had one of those timepieces. So and he also had some, even above those three there are more high-end watches like Roger Dubuis, and if I'm right, he have also a Roger Dubuis in his collection. So, but when it's about cheaper watches, he is not like very aggressive against people who collects those pieces or people who buy them, because he knows that for every budget there is something. And yeah.
look at what I wanted to do is a modern Invicta, and take a sample of 3 watches, and they have 4 general movement categories. The biggest one, or one of the biggest ones, is quartz, and so we're not interested in quartz. And there's 2 different kinds of automatics, and then there's one kind of mechanical movements, or I should say one class of mechanical movements. And they're a Chinese outfit. The movement is JQR005 GILT. Right? It's a mechanical series. China has thousands of watchmaking companies for making mechanical or automatic watches.
My opinion went about the Invictas with the Chinese mechanical movement. Nothing wrong with it. Most time they are the cheapest you can get. They are cheaper than the watches with the Seiko NH35 or with a Swiss movement inside.
So they get one of those. All right. The second one for automatics, the one in the middle there, is it has a Sellita SW500. Now this is their top drawer movement, and it's a Swiss made, and they're very proud of the fact that that is. And this is probably one of their most expensive watches. This one is listed at $1056. I got all of these, by the way, from the Invicta site, and they're discounted all over the place. Trust me on this one. Finally, the other ones, the really inexpensive ones. Now this Superman one was $78. Okay, and it has an automatic movement it's a Japanese company called TMI, and the caliber is called the NH35A.
TMI is owned by Seiko Group, so yeah, it's in Seiko movement. So yeah,
they're very economical, I'll put it that way. Okay, so this is sort of
by the way, those 3 are not mine, so I don't have those 3 in my collection. So when he's going to my collection, those 3 are not mine. He's just explaining what kind of movements went about mechanical Invicta use nowadays.
A sample of mechanical and automatic watches that Invicta has today. When they were founded in Chaux de France in Switzerland, they were founded in 1837. What they wanted to do was that they wanted to make Swiss watches that were affordable. Okay, well, they certainly got the affordable part right, and there's still a lot of watches. So that's just sort of an introduction to what we're going to be looking at when we look at Casper's collection. Now, as a reminder, I had done this little
so I think that's a very cool picture. So you have here the small fish is the Rolex, and the bigger fish is the Patek Philippe, and you have the very big fish, the Philippe IV. So there's always a bigger fish, and people always looking down to some cheaper, to people with cheaper watches. So when you have a Rolex, somebody with a Patek Philippe looks down to the guy with the Rolex. And when you have a Patek Philippe, somebody with a Philippe Devor will look down to the guy with the Patek Philippe. So when it's about watches like Oris and Invicta, somebody with the Rolex maybe is looking down to us. But I think also the guy with the more expensive watch just have to keep in mind that there's always somebody with a more expensive, a better watch, if you can say it like that.
Chart. The biggest fish is a Philippe Dufour, and it eats cheap watches. In this case, you have a Patek Philippe, and it eats cheap watches, which is a Rolex, and so on and so forth. So it really doesn't matter what kind of watch you have. There's always going to be some bigger, nicer watch that's going to stick its nose up at some of the watches you have. So let's just look at these as sort of a humble collection that we don't stick our nose up at lest that happens to our watches. All right, it's just a reminder. There's always going to be somebody who's got more money, more better looking, yada yada yada. So, okay, so
I want to be clear. Bill can be sometimes when he's talking a little bit dry, but he's always in the contact I had with him. He is always excited when it's about watches. He's really, and he has a lot of knowledge, especially when it's about very high end. So this like when it's about vintage Invicta, it's already a brand that is there's nothing on the internet almost when it's about those vintage pieces. So when I asked him about some high-end brands, what the movement is and how it's working, he can tell everything about it. But when it's about old Invictas that are rare and nobody knows anything about it, he also don't know anything about it. So it's also for him a little bit difficult. But he was impressed by some of those pieces.
Let's start off now. Casper sent me these without a lot of information, but they were so interesting. Now, here's the thing about the ones that he collects. They're pretty much vintage. And so they go back to a time when Invicta was making its own movements, and we'll see some of those in a bit.
So I didn't send him the watch. At least I didn't send him a picture of the watch with the in-house Invicta movement. But yeah, let's go continue.
The first one up in the upper left up there, that has a date, and it has the.
Hey, Sauce Rob, how are you, guy? Everything right? All right. So today I want to watch together with this video made by Bill Saunders. His YouTube channel is WatchArtSci, and he's a very kind guy. He reviewed some of my timepieces, and I think he has a humble, honest opinion about watches, and also about maybe some of my my timepieces. So yeah.
It's called Invicta 17, and it's got the small seconds. And it's sort of interesting is that they use green and red sort of little tops on top of the date. I'm not quite sure why, but at a glance you can tell which is which. The one next to it on the right is just a date only at 3 o'clock. Otherwise, it's called a it's just an automatic.
He cannot read it. So the one on the let me see if I can. The one on the right, on the top right, is called the Royal Marine. So I think I cannot pick it up right now, but I think it's a date just homage from the 70s. Let's scroll further.
To the right of it is called, there's an automatic 25. It's another one with date only. And right below it, there's another version of the same watch. As you can see, they both have the date. There's a little difference between the two, but not a great deal. They're just indexes, no numbers on either one of them. Now, the one in the lower.
Hey, Henry, how are you? So yeah, today so this guy, I sent him a lot of pictures, And I sent him also. I sent him of every model I know, also what kind of movement is inside, and the measures. But I think because he is not familiar with those timepieces and with with this brand, it's for him difficult to say what is what. But he's trying his best.
The left has each one, instead of indexes, they have the numbers. They have a little dot next to them. And then at the bottom it says ankle block, which is a shock absorbing system. All right, this next group now is the one in the upper left has the metal bracelets. In other words, the one in the upper left and the two metal bracelets below that has some kind of connection to 1837. It's probably one of the older ones in Casper's collection.
No, it's not my oldest one. So he's talking about those that one with the metal bracelets. That with the metal bracelet, I have it. I still have it. The bracelet also, but now there's an leather alligator strap on it. But that one there's on the dial is 1837. But that watch is not my oldest because that one is produced in the 70s. And if I'm right, they produced that 1937 collection because of the jubileum. Invicta was 140 or is it 160? Anyway, there was a jubileum, and Invicta has produced in the 70s a whole collection, and they stamped everywhere on those watches 1937. Also on the back of the case. So yeah, a little bit inside information for the people who are interested in collecting also vintage Invictas.
And it's pretty plain looking style of this final group are the movements, and these are all Invicta manufactured movements, which is all.
So yeah, what's about his opinion about the watches itself? As I said, it's for him it's really difficult. I know I've on paper what movement is inside the watch, and so I know it, but it's really difficult to just I sent him the movements, but yeah. And Invicta in the past, Invicta used a lot of generic movements made by Adolf Schild, so AS, or produced by Lenderon, is also a manufacturer, or made by Valjo, or made by ETA, just like nowadays. Yes, this gentleman is Bill Saunders. He's also a YouTuber. So some years ago, I asked him to review or to tell something about my watches on his YouTube channel. So he sent me some pictures of the watches. Also sent me some information about them, and I did that. And so he made this video. I think it's from 2 years ago. So before I started with YouTubing. He's a very kind guy, and went about. So mostly when his channel is about very high-end watches, like watches that are 10, 20, 30,000 thousand euro US dollars. So that is, he is just most time he's talking about those watches, but sometimes people ask him to review their collection. So sometimes he reviewing an Oris of somebody, or he's talking about Rolex. But he is honest and humble. He is not like attacking people who are buying Invictas, who are buying Seikos, cheaper Seikos, or Citizens. So he's not bashing people who are buying those watches, because he knows that not everybody can afford yes, an expensive watch, and he thinks also in the little you can find something very nice.
A lot more you can say for some of the really expensive watches. These movements are, all of them you can see, they all have the Invicta logo on it, which of course we know doesn't mean a great deal sometimes. The one at the top and then the one at the lower right, both of those are mechanical watches. And in the lower left, you have one with a rotor, which is
So, what can I say about those three movements? So, I didn't look it up for this video, but so far I know the one on the top is an ETA, and if I'm right, it is no, it is not that one. No, it's not that one with the ETA. Or is the no? Yes, it's the ETA. This is the ETA. I don't know the caliber number, but this is the triple date with day, date, month. Yes, on the dial. So it's an, as I said, Invicta in the past, when in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, in the 60s, in the 70s, Invicta also bought a lot of generic movements, and they just stamped their name on the movements. So that's why you can find Invicta engraved on those movements. But they just bought those movements. They didn't produce them themselves. However, Invicta did produce also their own movements, but most of them they are just generic, and sometimes they modified those movements. Yes, sauce rope. So let's have a look on the chat again. So yes, it's very nice of him, and he is a really heavy hitter. So he is very familiar with high-end watches and high-end movements, and he can talk a lot about the decoration on those watches, and about the movements, and what kind of technique they used in those movements. So yeah, and I think this is not his. He's not an expert on, I think, on old vintage timepieces. So the one on the top is an ETA. I don't know what caliber. I have it somewhere on my computer. So the one on the bottom left is a mechanical automatic. It's, if I'm right, an AS. I don't know the the caliber number just straight out of my head. I don't know it. And the last one, I'm not sure. Yes, I have of all three. I have on the computer. I know I can find it.
Automatic. So here's the thing: is that the interesting thing about it is that when they survived the quartz crisis, and they did it in two ways. One, they simply adopted quartz movements in a lot of their watches, but they also started using very inexpensive movements from China and Japan, both the mechanical and the rotor. The here though, this is sort of before that, they were able to be very competitive, making their own movements, and they're not expensive movements. They're not especially elaborate, but they're very functional movements. And so this is one of the things. I think it's a somewhat of a surprise. A lot of people, Invicta, it's a crummy watches, and they don't.
Yes, so it's very interesting. Yes, because those old watches, Invicta, they are Swiss made, so the movements are just Swiss movements, and those also those old watches were very cheap. I think you can in that time you can when's about money for today. It's you can buy a watch for $60, so really cheap. An Invicta for $60, but Invicta did also made some higher end watches, as example, made out of gold. So not gold plated, but a massive 18 karat gold. So those are more expensive because and the case is made out of gold. And sometimes they did use some more expensive movements inside. As example, somebody I know also from Instagram, he has an Invicta with a modified by Invicta, a modified Valjo 22. So that's a very high-end movement. You can find those movements in watches that are nowadays $2,000-3,000 US. So really expensive watches. But on the top of that, they not only put that movement inside, they also modified it, so to a higher standards.
Even count them, and I think that's a mistake because unless you know exactly all of the parts, everything that goes into your watch, how many things are different, and why are the things in your watch so much better? Some of you have never even been able to see everything that's in your watch. I mean, you have these solid backs, and you can't see them, or you have a big rotor over them. Now, these you have to take the back off of, but at least you can get a pretty good idea of what's in there. And these are all, like I said, these are some of the other ones that Invicta made. Well, anyway, now I have an idea that what you might think of. Say, well, I'm going to tell Casper he ought to get this, or something like that.
So here is an example. So this is a Lenderon 149. So this is a chronograph. This is a solid 18 karat golden watch. So that is more expensive. The Lenderon 149 is not the highest movement you can find, but it's an okay movement. I think you can find them in a lot of chronographs. But yeah, very nice. By the way, what do you think about this movement? I picked this one out of my box. So I got it complete with papers and also with this leather case. So I'm not sure if you can see there's on the inside, you can see there's Invicta on the cushions. But let me see if I can get it more clear on the screen. It's not going sharp. It's a very nice watch. So yeah. Let's go further again.
Before you do that, though, take a look at these. Take a careful look at them.
Yeah,
And
it's indeed a very nice watch, Rob. I really like it. It doesn't get enough wrist time because I'm afraid that it will that I will damage the watch. Also, because it's very old. I think it's from the 50s. I'm not really sure, but I think that because the movement, maybe you can see it also on this picture. Let me see if I can, if you can. I hope you can see my mouse. But normally here where my mouse is, there's on modern watches you have here an Inca block, so a shock protection system. So when your watch gets in shock, most time on older watches the balance wheel will break. But so because they have not a shock protecting system here. So on modern watches they have all the modern watches have shock protection system. So that's called Inca block, and this one is without Inca block. So it's an older Landeron 149 without Inca block, and I'm afraid when I wear it and I will fall or I will hit my watch against something that it will break.
and really consider it. How would you recommend sort of for a next step?
So what he's doing always in his on his YouTube, somebody sending his collection for review, and Bill Saunders will tell you what you have to get in your collection. So he is just also giving some tips to. But it's really difficult when I only have Invictas. So, and he cannot recommend. He cannot also tell, yes, buy this Invicta, this vintage Invicta.
Casper, you want to do something at a very reasonable price. One of the things that I was thinking of is getting something either a step up with a vintage watch like there's a Zaza Lacutra, just a Lacutra.
Oh.
Some of those are reasonably priced. Or getting one of the more modern ones, such as Tissot, that are lower priced and they have ETAs and so forth.
Jaeger LeCoultre. A vintage Jaeger LeCoultre. Yeah, that's a step higher when it's about vintage watches. Most time when you're looking to the vintage market, you can find a lot of very nice vintage timepieces like Jaeger LeCoultre. Some of them can be expensive. Yes, please get a Jaeger. No, I think I will stay with my Invictas. I think, as I said, Invicta made also some more high-end timepiece. As I said about that guy that I know, I think that those timepieces can compete with what some other brands bring. I think they can compete with it, but you never know. And Tissot, yes, Tissot isn't. I think it's an affordable, nice, a nice modern. You can find nice modern Tissots. They are not really expensive most time.
Within them, if you're interested in that. Now, I guess the other option for Casper, that unless you go, keep getting more and more vintage Invictas, there's
Yes, I do. I get more vintage Invicta. So in the meantime, I did got some very nice. I got a lot of more vintage Invictas.
at that price point, you're not going to be able to get into too many complications. Now you have the chronograph, which is good, complicated enough. But you might want to think of one watch that if you could wear with a in a work environment or sort of a little nicer office watch. That might be a suggestion too. Anyway, well, listen, I'd like to hear your suggestions, and until next Friday, this is Bill Sanders for WatchArtSci, the art and science of watch collection.
So this is video of WatchArtSci. So I will put down below also in the description his YouTube channel. So if you like, also I think if you're interested in more about high-end watches, also about maybe high-end movements, and I think also watch techniques, I think it's a very nice channel to follow also. So a little shout out to that guy. About what I got in the meantime, my latest watch that I received is this very small, delicate. It's really hard to get it on this very delicate dress watch. So this one is 9-karat gold. So it's a cheaper golden dress watch. I'm not sure what kind of movement is inside. It's some of those older watches, you can only open them on the front, so you have to so you have to remove the glass, and after that you have to remove the dial, and so you can get by the with the so you can see the movement. So I don't know what I cannot open it on the back. So I don't know what movement is inside, and I still have to send it to my watchmaker. So this was everything I wanted to share with you guys. So are some of you? Let me put this one off. It's not needed anymore. So I'm also interested for the people who are watching. Are you also planning to buy a watch, and what you're looking for in your next buy? So when it's about myself, I'm looking for I really want to buy in the future maybe something with a more complicated watch, so maybe a repeater or something like that. So Invicta went about Invicta made some more complicated movements like repeaters in some of their pocket watches. So maybe I'm interested to look for a pocket watch with a repeater function. Or I've seen also in the past an Invicta with a chronograph with moon phase, day and date, and month function. So that's also in 18-karat gold. So that's also a really high-end watch. So I'm also thinking about something like that, but I think really hard to get, and maybe it's not my budget. I'm thinking of buying a Rolex 3135 movement and put it inside a Breitling case. Okay, but why you want to put the Rolex in a Breitling case? yeah. So I know from a lot of forums that a lot of people don't like the Breitling. Went about my. I think there's nothing wrong with Breitling. Last week we did a video about um, uh, how I what I think about watch brands and how I will um, measure them. So I think Breitling is a very nice brand with a lot of heritage. Okay, Breitling movement is broken, and to fix it too expensive. Sometimes I'm not sure what kind of movement is inside, but sometimes it's cheaper to buy a movement itself. Okay, 3135 is 157. So I don't know what kind of Breitling movement is inside, but sometimes it's cheaper to buy a new movement and just put it inside the watch, inside the case. Yes. Um, so it's depending on what kind of movement is inside. Breitling use sometimes also some ETA movement, so far I know. But I don't know in your case. I don't know what movement they use. So yes, so went about also went about some higher end brands like some vintage Jaeger LeCoultre, or some, I think also Breitling, and a lot of other brands. They used in the past also just some generic brands. Most time they modified it, the movement, so they they did a nice finish on the movement, and they modified it on some places, so it will be somewhat better. Let me read it. So soft rope, it's a mechanical kinetic movement. I nearly had a heart attack when he quoted the repair price. Okay, so it was really expensive. And where did you brought your movement? So it's also when it's about watchmaking. It's also depending on where you bring your watch. So I have a guy who's doing my the repair on my watches. So most time he's just cleaning the movements, every part, and he's oiling the parts that has to be oiled. And he put it again. That's yes, but sometimes with my vintage timepieces, he doesn't replace every part. Also, when it's a little bit old, let's say it like that. Unless I say that I really want to replace every part that is uh, not not good. But then will my the repair cost will be more expensive in that case, if he had to replace all those parts that are not yeah. So, but I think, where did you brought your watch? I think when you have an heart attack, when he's telling the repair price, I think you're bringing it to Breitling itself. Hmm. Okay. When I bring yes, okay. Yes, I understand. You brought it to Breitling. Yes, Breitling ask when you bring your watch to Breitling, they ask the highest price almost you can get. Maybe you should try also an independent watchmaker if you trust that. I don't know where you live, but if you're also living here in Holland or in Belgium, I know a good watchmaker. Maybe he can try it for you. But if you don't want it, you can always try. Scotland. I'm not sure if it's worth to send the watch to here in the Netherlands and then he has to send it back to Scotland. I think it will be also more pricey because you have to send it outside your country. But you can try to find. Maybe there are some very nice independent watchmakers also there. You can try that. Because I think the price will be it will be a lot cheaper. I'm pretty sure about that. When I have an Omega and I bring it to an Omega service center, they will ask. They will give good service. The repair will be just excellent. Nothing wrong with, and they will replace every part that is scratched and there's. And when they think there's tear on it, they will replace everything. But they ask the highest price possible. And when you bring it to an independent watchmaker, and you can tell sometimes just oil it, just repair, just do a service so it will work and I can use it once in a while. And that is how I do it. In the case of this one, it's about this one. So I brought this one also to a service center. So not the Invicta one. I brought this to a watch repair center where they also do high-end watches like Rolex, Omega, and they charged me also the highest price. So for this watch alone, I think I paid between $300 and $400 dollar. So that is really, 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 really expensive. Connection was lost, I think. That's strange. Okay. I think the connection was lost. I'm back. Let me read the comments again. I will look for a new guy. Okay, great. Yes, you should do that. Just look for a new watchmaker, maybe an independent guy that has nice price. But also, it's not only about the price. The quality of his service has to be good. So not somebody who is making more damage. Sig collects. Thank you. Yes, he's a very nice guy. And I think it's a very nice video of him just to do reviews. And if you have also some very nice timepieces in your collection, you can always ask him to review it or give his opinion on your collection. So yeah. Yes, I don't know why the connection. I think there's something with the internet here. So I had some my internet was my connection was lost, but I'm now back. Yes, I was talking about the chronograph that I sent to a service center. So the chronograph, this one, will now it's now in so far I know it's not COSC certified, but they will when they service the watch there on the in that service center, they try to repair the watch and service the watch so it will be COSC. The watch will walk like a COSC watch. So I don't have a time grapher at home, but I really want to know if this one will also do how it's keeping the time, if it's keeping like a COSC watch with that certification. But I did one time a service for a watch that expensive and will never do it again. So now I have another guy, and he is now doing also my chronographs and my hand winders and my automatic watches, like this automatic one. He did this one last year, I think in February. He has much better prices, and but most time he don't replace every part unless I tell him that I really want the movement as best as possible. So he will replace the wheels and everything, so it will the movement will be will be fantastic. But when he has to replace the parts, it will be more expensive. But he so I think I want to thank everybody who has watched this video, and let me know what watch is your next one. I'm really interested in what you're looking now, what you have on your eye, what you really want to get in the near future. So let me down below in the comments, let me know what you want to get. And if you like this video, give it a thumb up and like and subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to put on the bell icon. I get sometimes people who just miss the video because they don't see it on YouTube. So I think because of the algorithm, you don't always get the notification when I'm online. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.